This week on Motor Week, Phil Sayer gets a ride in the all-new TT Roadster. Show off, Ian Royle and myself decide how an estate agent may fare with an Audi A6 4.2-litre Quattro V8 and a stockbroker with a Land Rover Discovery. And Ginny Buckley squeezes in to a VW Lupo. Sorry, Ginny.
4 years ago at the Frankfurt Motor Show, Audi unveiled a concept car, a two-seater sports car in two versions, a soft top and a hard top. And everybody looked at it and said, yes, it's absolutely wonderful, but they'll never build it because Audi build dull but worthy saloons such as the Audi 80 and the Audi 100. However, just a few years later, they decided that they would prove everybody half wrong by releasing the Audi TT Coupe. And now they've proved everybody, the doubting Thomases at least, totally wrong, because here is the Audi TT Roadster with that soft top. And let me tell you, it is extraordinarily close to that original concept car that they showed at the motor show. Now, we're here in Italy, so Italy kind of fancies itself really as being the birthplace of style. They are the kings of style. There's a village just down there in the valley behind me. Let's go and find out what the king thinks of the young pretender to the throne. Clearly from the reactions of other drivers and passers-by, people are certainly interested in this car, and by and large you sure get the feeling that they like it. It's a good-looking car and it's unusual. To some people's eyes, apparently, it's a little bit on the bulbous side, but I actually quite like that. Now this is a tourist town, so we're going to get all nationalities here giving us their opinions on this car.
Italiano.
See? You like Bella?
Fantastica.
I prefer Italian cars. This, for my taste, is too sportive car.
Too sporty?
Yes, I prefer a car, family car. Do you know? Family car. So this is not very good for me.
It's the car to be seen in, isn't it?
All cars look the same.
Right.
Because they come out of the wind channel and they look the same.
I think if there is a speed limit on roads, the cars will start looking nicer.
Mind you, look what they're driving, a Renault Twingo. Quite a mixed bag of nationalities and quite a mixed bag of opinions. Even though I didn't actually understand half of them, you got the feeling from the body language that people by and large do quite like this car. However, as you can probably see, rain has now stopped play. I've got a feeling that it's more or less just a shower, so I'm going to go take a cappuccino and then I'm going to drive up into the mountains in search of some sunshine and do the rest of the road test. I'm not quite so sure about though is the seats. Now don't get me wrong, nothing wrong with the design of them, they're perfectly comfortable, but A, I don't particularly like the colour of the trim in this vehicle, but there are other colours available, and secondly, this sort of baseball style stitching on the edges here really doesn't do a lot for me. You might like it, and full marks to Audi though for offering it. They've really been very, very brave, very adventurous with this car. Full marks to them for that. As far as driving is concerned, well, it is more or less a true sports car. I would say there is some level of compromise there, because as well as the traditional German engineering, which means you could certainly own and run this car every day, it's going to be reliable, it's going to be trustworthy, there is a slight compromise, I guess. This is no Lotus Elise with hard as rock suspension. You could do the miles in this car, and certainly on the motorway, with this 6-speed gearbox, it's incredibly relaxed and quiet. With the roof up, it's perhaps the quietest convertible that you'll ever drive. All the Audi TTs, coupes and roadsters that are coming to the UK are permanent four-wheel drive, the Audi Quattro system, which gives it incredible cornering ability. As they say, she goes round on rails, and that's for sure. The steering, I have to say, is not quite as involving as I might have thought it would be. It really isn't, but the ride and the handling, pretty nigh faultless. There are two engines available. They're both 1800s, but different turbos means that this particular one gives out 225 bhp as opposed to 180 in the less powerful version. That means that this one also gets the 6-speed gearbox, which is like moving a knife through butter. Absolute beautiful gear change. It's quite a quick car as well, the 0 to 60 in under 7 seconds. And when you consider that the Quattro four-wheel drive system saps some of the power, that's pretty respectable figures, but it ain't no Porsche 911. But then, it doesn't cost that amount of money either. Audi haven't released prices yet for the UK, but with the coupe at between £27,000 and £30,000, the Roadster's likely to add around £1,500 to £2,000 to those prices. Only 1,500 of these cars will come to the UK this year, and they're all sold out now. Well, let's face it, it's probably most people's dream, including mine, to have a beautiful bit of kit like this to play with for a day or two. 30-odd thousand pounds worth of sports car and racing up and down the Italian mountains. It was an absolute joy, I have to say. However, I've now come back into town, and guess what? It's raining again. But in a sense, maybe that's not such a bad thing, because it does give me the opportunity to demonstrate what is probably the best electric hood in the business. It's quick, it's simple, you push one button, turn one handle, bye.
There are plenty of times here on Motor Week that you've seen us behind the wheel of fabulous, expensive, fast cars. Cars like that are what driving is all about. And yes, we'd all love to find one parked outside our house in the morning.
Unfortunately, the car that we'd love to own and the car we have to own are actually very different. The reality needs to be an affordable, practical car, something to nip around in and transport us all from A to B.
And those are qualities that these two midget gems certainly have. The Seat Arosa and VW's baby Lupo. Cute little names, in cute yet practical packages. But they're also cars that won't leave you pleading with the bank manager. But how do these super minis, that are just perfect for today's super mums, compare with each other? In terms of the factor, they're both sweet little bundles. In fact, from behind to take the most observant of mums to even tell them apart. They both have a squared-off little hatch at the back that opens to reveal a tiny amount of storage space. Space which is actually even smaller in the Lupo. But that's the only point that makes the Arosa the more attractive of the two. Both cars have a very similar look. They do, after all, share the same daddy, otherwise known as Volkswagen. But the story here is one that's familiar to many siblings.
Unfortunately, the Arosa has lost out to its little brother in the looks department. Now, they are very similar. In fact, they could almost be twins. But while the Lupo has the potential to make it to the catwalk, the Arosa is always going to be the one known as having a good personality. But hey, when it comes to cars in this class, isn't a good personality what it's all about?
This is the kind of car that you immediately feel at home in. The 1.4 engine feels nice and punchy, it revs smoothly, and its 60 brake horsepower gets you to a top speed of 100 miles per hour. 0 to 60 takes 14 seconds, a couple of seconds slower than the Lupo.
The 4-speed gearbox is slick and it responds well. Now, my only gripe is that the power steering, which by the way is standard on all models, feels a little bit heavy. But that aside, this car sticks to the road like glue when you corner, and it really is, surprisingly, a very entertaining drive. The Arosa shares its platform with the VW Polo. Well, in fact, to be perfectly honest, it probably shares an awful lot with its cousins from Volkswagen. But that isn't a bad thing, far from it. What it actually means is that Seat's days of quality control problems are now long gone.
There's a definite feeling of quality about the Arosa. But of course, quality costs. And in this case, the 1.4 SE will set you back £8,395.
And that price includes a few extras, things like central locking, electric windows and a pollen filter if you're a hay fever sufferer. Now, the cabin isn't the most exciting of places to be, what with this extremely large, bulky dashboard of, yes, black plastic. But everything does feel solid and well built, and as if it would withstand the hammer that a family will no doubt put it through. Now, we know that little Lupo comes tops in the looks department, but what about that bit that we spend all our time in? The interior. Well, the bright green upholstery that tones with the exterior paint job will certainly wake up the kids in the morning. I think it looks great, it's really bright and cheerful. But don't worry if green isn't your theme, because there are plenty of other colours you can choose from. Now in here the look is very modern and really well thought out. There's a very interesting use of shapes and some wonderful design touches. The Arosa may have been well built, but this eclipses it. It just oozes quality and design. You could almost be in a Golf that's been shrunk in the wash. Just look at the way the grab handles and the cup holders are dampened. There are plenty of ingenious storage spaces, and my favourite touch for those cold winter mornings, heated seats. These are things that you would normally expect to find in a luxury marque and not a super mini. In fact, the quality in here could put many luxury cars to shame. But then, this is a Volkswagen.
And this 1.4 SE may be more upmarket than the Seat, but it's going to cost you more as well. Around £1,200 more at £9.5 grand. But remember, because this is a Volkswagen, the reputation and build quality mean you won't lose quite so much money after a few years of motoring.
And what happy motoring it will be. The 1.4 engine produces 75 brake horsepower. That means you get a top speed of around 106 miles per hour. And if you're up for it, you can get from 0 to 60 in just over 12 seconds. But somehow I don't think the Lupo is going to attract too many boy racers. Now this 1.4 engine is definitely a better buy than the 1 litre. The 16 valves means that it rushes around town in a hurry to get all your jobs done. It really does feel very nippy. Overtaking is no problems in it, neither is cruising on the motorway.
The benefits of super minis are of course cheap insurance. Group 5 in the case of the VW and a low Group 3 for the Seat. They'll also be cheap to run as they both average around 45 miles to the gallon.
And now it's time for the bit that all brothers and sisters hate, picking the favourite. And in this family, it's a very close call. The Arosa is an excellent value for money package, and surprisingly, it's very entertaining to drive. The Lupo isn't quite so much fun behind the wheel, but it's the excellent build quality and those wonderful design touches that really make it stand out. And as I doubt that many of us are buying a super mini with performance in mind, for me, the Lupo gets to be the favourite in this family.
Coming up after the break, Ian and myself decide if we would rather live with an Audi A6 Estate or a Land Rover Discovery.
Meet Mr. Smith and Mr. Jones. They both live in a little village within commuting distance of the big city. Image is important to both of them. Mr. Smith works in the big town and drives an Audi A6 4.2 Quattro V8. His car is intended to reflect his desired status at work. Mr. Jones is a country estate agent. He loves to go hiking and fishing in his spare time. His 4-litre Discovery reflects his lifestyle and sets him apart from the serfs in the village. Now then, you two, what I'd like you to do is actually to swap cars just for the day, and let's see if your personal choice of lifestyle car is really necessary for your lifestyle. Now come on. No more pulling face. That's it. Good. No, that's enough of that kind of thing. Now off you go and play. We'll see how you get on in a short while.
One of the first things that Mr. Jones would notice on climbing in here is that compared to the airy cabin of the Discovery, it's really rather gloomy in here thanks to the dark leathers and plastics used. But then he'd start to notice just the subtle quality of all the materials used, the chrome on the door handles, the very nice quality feel to the leather and the plastic. It is rather like sliding into a very well appointed, if very small, boardroom for what must be a very important and serious meeting. But the overriding impression, and probably the first thing to hit Mr. Jones, would be the fact that compared to the lofty perch of the Discovery from where you can see over hedges, you really do feel sat very close to the ground. Obviously, to drive, the A6 is a completely different prospect. No matter how good the engineering that's gone in to make the Discovery as close to a road car as possible, it's never going to be a match for the kind of low, wide stance of a car like this and the development work that's gone into that suspension. It really is a very different driving proposition. It uses its V8 very, very differently. Applying the power, yes, through four wheels, but in a very different way. It's a much more sporty drive. It's much happier belting along either country roads or motorways, but particularly big motorways.
Well, having rid myself of the constraints of a jacket and tie, the first thing that Mr. Smith notices on stepping into the Discovery is that, of course, it's higher. It also feels a lot roomier, a lot airier, a lot lighter. The fabric and trim all round is more brighter than the sombre Audi. It's very comfortable. You can see this as a cruiser on the motorway doing 90 or so. It's almost an armchair on wheels put on cruise control, and it's great. And of course you have this high-up driving position that you just don't get with the Audi. Performance-wise, it's not bad. It can nip quite easily through this 5-speed gearbox. Handling, though, is another matter. Try and push this hard down country lanes like the Audi, and you may come unstuck.
Not surprisingly, our Mr. Jones enjoys a spot of hunting, shooting and fishing, and he'd be relieved to find that there's more than enough room in the boot of this A6 for all of his kit. There's even a little guard to keep the gun dog at bay. But here's a bit of a worry. The first time Mr. Jones returns with a muddy set of waders and an old wax jacket from a day's fishing, well, this boot is not going to look quite as pristine as it does now. It is, if anything, a little bit posh, and perhaps it's a bit too posh for Mr. Jones's purposes. And there's another worry. The Discovery will be able to romp its way perhaps a little closer to that lake with all of the fishing kit. But this, I reckon, is about as far as this car is going to get.
I do hope that Mr. Jones is looking after my Audi, not getting it too dirty. Now, as you can see, the Discovery is still a very big car. It's actually not quite as long as the A6 Avant, which is interesting, but it's wider, and it takes a fair bit of manoeuvring to get it in and out of tight car parking spaces like this. But once you get it in, well, have a look at the rear space. Smart. 2 individual child seats. They're smart as well. I just wonder whether perhaps this Discovery has the same sort of image that the Audi does, whether it's maybe a bit more down market, dare I say, than the Audi. Perhaps if you want a 4x4, the Range Rover would be the one to go for over the A6 Avant.
Whoa! I think one thing Mr. Jones would definitely enjoy is accelerating from 0 to 60 miles an hour in 7.1 seconds, which in a car this size is pretty impressive, even though it is nowhere near as big as the Discovery. But therein lies an important point. It is, what, 300 odd brake horsepower from that V8. It's a very powerful car. And sure, it's nowhere near as big as the Land Rover, but it is still a big estate car. And there are some moments on country lanes when perhaps all that extra power and extra speed is more likely to get you into trouble than you would do in a Land Rover. You're going to be going faster than this on occasions, and there are moments when I certainly wouldn't like to meet a tractor coming the other way. Having said all of that, it is still a very enjoyable thing to drive, and I think Mr. Jones would rather enjoy that extra turn of speed and that ability to go just that little bit faster. After all, who doesn't enjoy a bit of extra speed? I really enjoyed the Audi, but I think Mr. Jones is going to miss a few things about his old Discovery. For a start, you're not going to be worried about getting the thing mucky, and there are definite advantages to that high-up driving position in this lofty, airy cabin. And then there's a proper off-road four-wheel drive system with a high and low ratio gearbox and with a clever descent gizmo to help you get down really steep hills. And there's no need to sacrifice any of life's little comforts either. Mr. Jones is quite accustomed to his electric seats, to his electric mirrors and his electric sunroof.
Now, as much as I like the Discovery, it's great to get back to the solid feel of the Audi, where quality is absolutely paramount. Superb quality finishes too, and plastics that are just excellent. You also get clever storage ideas, like these two bins in the doors. You get electric seats with lumbar support that adjusts to your back, plus Tiptronic gearbox that adapts to your driving style, and of course you can change gear manually should you wish to, plus climate control with individual controls for both the driver and front seat passenger.
Well, it may not be quite as elegantly installed, but there are individual controls for front seat passenger and driver on the automatic air conditioning in the Discovery. And then for rear seat passengers, well, useful gizmos include an incredibly nifty mechanism for when there are only two passengers, getting rid of the rear centre headrest and providing a useful armrest, complete with rather vicious looking cup holders. Wouldn't want to get caught up in those.
Now, although you don't get the high-up seating position of the Discovery in the Audi, obviously, back here is a very civilised place. After all, who needs to look over hedges when you can relax back here with a centre armrest, absolutely perfect, which also has a centre storage area, two individual cup holders as well for rear seat passengers. It's just a civilised place to spend a few hours on a long journey. And it's also back here that quality is absolutely paramount, along with some very clever touches. For instance, quality carpet that wouldn't look out of place in some people's living room. Heaven forbid putting a pair of muddy wellies on there or boots. Also chrome handles and chrome hooks for keeping luggage safe. A damped 12-volt adapter socket there. And it's not just the Discovery that can come with 7 seats, because the A6 Avant can have an optional set of rear-facing child seats, which makes a grand total of 7 people to carry.
Well, it may not quite so closely resemble the luxurious business departures lounge at a comfortable airport, but it is nevertheless pretty pleasant in here in a gentleman's club sort of way, and it is, after all, an off-roader. Now, there's accommodation back here for another 2 people, and it's extremely clever. When you don't need it, it stows away thus, with the headrest folding up into the roof and the rear seat folding sideways into the boot space itself. When they are in sight, then the rear seat passengers have luxurious little touches like their own individual cup holders and tray down by the side, and even control for each person over the CD player. And I call that rather clever thinking.
So there we are. Mr. Smith and Mr. Jones can both be assured that they have cars which are certainly built to last, despite a £10,000 or so price difference. The question is, would they ever agree on which to buy?
Next week on Motor Week, Ken Gibson goes all Gallic in the brand new Citroën C6, and our Phil Sayer finally gets to go posing in the Volvo C70 Coupe. Nice work if you can get it.